It's spooky season, Pat.
Oh, it is spooky. It is getting real scary in the triangle with the way this football season is going. We are living in a horror movie.
Friday night, Halloween, Syracuse hosting UNC. Welcome into WRAL Triangle 2. I'm Mark Bergin. He's Pat Welter. Two teams on 4-game losing streaks, Pat. And the Tar Heels still in search of their first ACC win.
And if there's a week to do it, this might be it. And even Vegas is on board. You saw the line kind of charge down the last couple weeks at Cal last week versus Virginia as well. And this time, UNC, a 2.5-point underdog, Friday night, Halloween at Syracuse. And look, you could argue they should have won their last 2 games if they hadn't shot themselves in the foot and if they hadn't been snake bit at the goal line. So if there's a week to do it, this is it. Their defense has been playing, dare I say, spectacular, but the offense is still among the worst in all of college football.
UNC, if the Tar Heels are going to win an ACC game, it's got to be one of the next 2 games.
Yep.
So Syracuse, Friday night on Halloween. Next up would be Stanford at home. If you're going to get a win, those are the 2 I'd imagine where you'd get one. The storyline perspective is shaping up for it's like, would we have to wait till all the way in the final week of the season for UNC to match up against rival NC State? But I look at this matchup too, and you're looking at how the heck Syracuse beat Clemson earlier this year. You've mentioned this on previous pods, Pat. Steve Angeli, the starting quarterback, out for the season, Achilles tendon injury. So UNC's been close in the last 2 weeks. 2 plays down on the goal line. I do think that they've played better. I know you talked about it in your post-game reaction, Pat, of going for 2 in overtime against Virginia. I personally don't really have a problem with going for the win there. You got to execute. Maybe you could criticize the play call, the rollout, a left-handed quarterback going right, something that, if you listen to this podcast feed that Brian Murphy talked with former UNC quarterback Bryn Renner about. Bryn Renner both playing at UNC and playing in the NFL, so it was great to get his perspective of actually playing the position. I understand all of that. Close isn't quite enough, though, so you're right there for your UNC, but another opportunity Friday night, and we'll see if the Tar Heels can get it done.
And I feel like the conversation with UNC is getting lost in the kind of cacophony of noise out there because, yes, they are playing better. They are improving. That's what Belichick has been saying to us since our report broke Monday after the Clemson game and just all the noise that followed that, hey, this team is getting better. Our standpoint on this show has been prove it, and they have defensively where they should have probably won these last 2 games, certainly played well enough on that side of the ball, but offensively still among one of the worst teams in all of college football. They're averaging 18 points per game. And even that number is significantly inflated by the 41 they dropped on FCS Richmond. So it's not even that good. And the finger has to start with Gio Lopez. Now, I don't think it's all his fault, right? There's been offensive line issues. I think there's a lot of coaching issues, but the numbers are just not good enough. 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 1 passing game over 200 yards, and it was against Virginia. This Syracuse team has given up at least 30 points during their 4-game losing streak. If we don't see it now, I don't know if we ever will with Lopez at quarterback.
You point to the quarterback position. I look at Freddie Kitchens and the offense and his track record before he was in the role as UNC's offensive coordinator. His teams from the NFL now into college football have been predicated on running the football. And really, we could argue passing game, running game, Pat, but I think where we would come to a consensus would be, what's UNC's offensive identity?
Dink and dunk, right? I mean, that's what they
they're
do.
Lacking the explosive plays in that department for sure. And we've seen some glimpses, whether it's Damon June, whether it's Jordan Shipp at times, Paysor at the receiver position as well. But in terms of what the Tar Heels try to establish offensively, and then a defense counters, and then what your counter is to the counter, I don't know if UNC even has, to where you can point to, well, this is the one thing that they're going to try to establish. This is the one thing that they're going to try to do offensively. You talked about the quarterback position. I look at the coaching of Freddie Kitchens touted as a coach with NFL experience. Well, the thing that you try to establish, they have not been able to get what I would say, Pat, is a lack of offensive identity.
Yeah, and I think when you're ever asking yourself to complete 10 to 12, 14 play drives, that's where these turnovers come into play. And UNC, among the worst in the country with 5 red zone turnovers. They had several last game, and really the last 2 games. These fumbles at the goal line that result in touchbacks, several Gio Lopez interceptions. So it's great that they're getting down there, but they just don't have either the scheme or the talent to finish these drives, and it's costing them wins. Like Belichick's big standpoint this week at the press conference was that he was pushing back about as hard as I've seen him on what he called the narrative of quick improvement. He said his quote was, "You don't go from base camp to the top of the mountain in 15 minutes." And that might be true, but I don't understand why the base camp had to essentially not bring appropriate footwear and camping gear and things that you needed to climb that mountain. They have started from sub-sea level. They didn't start at base camp. They've been one of the worst offensive teams in all of college football. And who's responsible for that? Well, you and Mike Lombardi brought in this roster. You hired the coaching staff. You've been coaching the team. The defensive improvement is tangible and impressive. But for there to be literally next to no improvement on offense outside of maybe a few running backs showing up, and I guess being able to move the ball between the 20s, that's really all we have to point our fingers to. So again, with Bill Belichick and this staff, I just kind of look big picture, where is this going? And if getting back to the Mac Brown baseline, if that's base camp, we've been spending a whole season just to hopefully get back to Mac Brown base camp, then what do the next 2 and 3 years look like if he's coming back? I mean, I acknowledge that it's possible that he needed to tear this thing down completely to the roots to build it back up. Just doesn't feel necessary to me, and I still have my doubts about its success rate going forward.
Yeah, I said this on last week's show, and I'll say this again just in case anyone's watching or listening for the very first time. If you look at Bill Belichick's $10 million salary, and then you look at the other coach that are in a similar annual salary range, those same schools aren't worried about, are we going to win a conference game? Are we going to make a bowl game and get to 6 wins? When you're paying him as much as they are, you expect premium results when you're paying a premium. And offensively, how much, when you talk about the complementary football portion of it, Pat, how much onus that puts on your defense when your offense can't sustain drives and stay out on the field and keep your defense resting on the sideline.
That was what was so impressive to me about the Virginia game, because I just kept waiting, because that offense kept giving the ball right back to Chandler Morris, that I was waiting for the dam to break, that the defense in the fourth quarter would eventually succumb to Virginia's offense that puts up 500 yards a game, and it just never happened. And that's a real credit to them. I have to give credit where credit is due. The reports that we had about a divided locker room, the culture issues at UNC, I stand by all those things at the time. I have to acknowledge now that some of the things that they're saying on the podium are matching up with what I'm hearing a little bit behind the scenes, that this has connected the team. It's funny how it could be a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy or a cyclical relationship where the media reports something that is true, but then the team then rallies around the media's report about what was true and comes together. It's interesting how there's kind of a symbiotic relationship there. And so to the team's credit, Jordan Shipp has cited specifically the reports about Belichick leaving that galvanized the team. And that was never our report. That was something we cited that was out there elsewhere. And then as I was able to talk to more people, I was told that it wasn't true, and we reported that. So all the people in my mentions that keep telling me that I'm the one that reported that Belichick was leaving or looking at exit strategies, I did not. I will say again, which I've said before, no one really knows what was said or discussed behind closed doors. What constitutes an exit strategy, right? These are things I'm just acknowledging that there's a gap in the reporting from other people, the gap in what I know versus what I'm being told. This is a process that's probably too complicated or too nuanced for social media, but I keep hearing it from people, and it's frustrating.
The only other thing I would talk about with the Virginia game was Brian Murphy posted a picture probably shortly after kickoff, and just you contrast that with Labor Day night, sellout TCU, his airness, Michael Jordan's in the building, Mia Hamm, all of these Tar Heels legends, Lawrence Taylor. I don't want to leave anyone out, but
Taylor Swift?
maybe.
Collective soul?
We'll leave that in, yeah. You contrast that with what we saw this last Saturday against Virginia, and just in terms of the number of people in the stands, and that really stuck out to me. You just look at the corners of Kenan Memorial Stadium, and there were just way less fans there. 5 games left. Again, Halloween night against Syracuse, primetime treatment. So, after you're done trick-or-treating with the kiddos, or, after you're done passing out Halloween candy, turn the Tar Heels on the tube, and we'll see what they do on Friday night against Syracuse.
Yeah, we'll see if it's a little M. Night Shyamalan, a twist ending. Who knows, man? Is it going to be a horror movie? Is it going to be a happy ending? If there's a chance for this team to win, I would say
I think it's these next 2 weeks, and then the narrative would be State, and that's where we'll go next. NC State hosting number 8 Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech undefeated, 8-0, 5-0 in the ACC. NC State's struggling right now, Pat. Wolfpack have lost 4 of their last 5 games, and here's where I'm at with NC State. The defense has just been dreadful this season. I got some stats here. Only 11 sacks in 8 games, 103rd in points allowed. The 105th defense, 408 yards per game allowed. The defense is just what continues to hamstring this team. And I look at this past week giving up 50-plus to Pittsburgh with a true freshman quarterback.
I know. Weinschel?
Mason Heinschel.
Mason Heinschel. Yeah. Learn the name. Put some respect. This guy set a record.
The future Dan Marino.
Yeah.
I mean, carving up, and that has been NC State's calling card, where maybe you miss Tony Gibson as your defensive coordinator, but if they just don't have the talent from a matchup standpoint, I look at this where Georgia Tech's a 6.5-point favorite, Pat. And what they do, the Yellow Jackets calling card is running the football. Haynes King leads the team in rushing, but it's not just him. We talked about him a few weeks ago. I got to see him play a few weeks back against Wake Forest. He's like the right-handed homeless man's version of Tim Tebow. That's his style of football. But this is a team where we were talking about offensive identity. What does Georgia Tech do well? They run the football. And NC State the defense has not gotten off the field. And I just look at this on paper, and it's like, this is another tough matchup. Now, Saturday night, Carter Finley, should be a great atmosphere. It's a tough place to play, tough environment, and that's why you play the games. But you're looking at that, and then if you want to get into the deeper level conversation, Pat, of Dave Doeren's future with this program as well, I know there's been rumblings about that. I'm happy to have that discussion too.
I want to dig a little bit more into Georgia Tech first, because
right.
that's the bigger picture one. But just on this game, I think Georgia Tech is a really interesting test case, because I think they are the beacon for what UNC football and NC State football can and should hope to be. Like, this isn't a team loaded with tons of talent. This is a team with a coach in his prime, a coach that wants to be there, a coach that has a culture and has a way to win. And I talk about an identity. Haynes King, 6-year player. They're always ahead of the sticks. Manny Diaz, I think, nailed it today, which makes them so tough to play offensively, because he was asked a question, because Duke played and lost to them last week. Why didn't you guys get more pressure, more tackle for losses? Why wasn't the defense playing it to its usual character? And Diaz pushed back on it. He was like, look, you got to look at how Georgia Tech plays. Their whole offense, you talk about Tim Tebow, is getting into like short down and distance, not hurting yourself, never getting behind the sticks, and it just leads to momentum where it's just tough to get in a pass rush situation when you're in 3rd and short. And that does not set up well for NC State, who seems to have a different reason they lose every week. Like, the common thread is the defense, Mark, but like, these problems run deep. Like, we go back to the Duke loss when this all started. I was just trying to find, like digging through the numbers, like what is their issue beyond just saying it's the defense? Well, the Duke loss was, they gave up 45 points, but they had 4 turnovers.
Yeah, the turnover battle.
Virginia Tech was a weird one because they didn't turn it over, but they gave up 229 yards rushing. Notre Dame was a variety. 3 turnovers. They gave up 143 yards rushing, only rushed 51 yards themselves and couldn't get anything going offensively. They only had 7 points. Pitt, I guess it's just the defense, right? They had 1 turnover, gave up 423 yards passing. So their problems are multifaceted. And gosh, it's got to be tough as a Wolfpack fan to see like this team in Georgia Tech that like they are your mirror image, right? That's what you should hope to be, right? Like they are the stepchild to Georgia in the same way that in some way, I don't know, it's not an exact parallel, UNC and NC State. Georgia's on a higher tier, but you can see the analogy, right? Like Georgia Tech's the school in the city of Atlanta. They're kind of the underdog, and they're the team that's 8-0 right now.
Yeah.
8-0.
With King, it's his ability to force a defense to play an honest 11-on-11 because when your quarterback can run the football, that's one more blocker that you have. So his ability in short yardage situations to move the chains, and it's not even always the chunk plays, Pat. It's just consistently moving the chains, and it's just first down after first down and getting into second and third and manageable to where, again, you're keeping your defense off the field. Pat, I know you know this, but if you talk to any player, and it's like, what's it like when your offense can sustain drives and you just get to relax on the sidelines, go drink your Gatorade, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the complimentary football, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that they've struggled with. Now, I will say, we've been waiting for NC State because Dave Doeren is great at beating teams that he shouldn't. He's great as an underdog.
But that's the thing it was like, well, he doesn't lose to Pitt, and they got smoked by Pitt.
They got smoked. I agree. None of the positive signs are there. But I will say this, Georgia Tech, 8-0, and I'm an AP voter, and every week I have them kind of a tier below several teams with 1 loss. And I think it's warranted because who have they really beat? Their best wins are Duke and Clemson. Now, I think Duke's a good football team. Clemson's going to play Duke this week, but they've had a pretty fortunate schedule, and they really have won the rest of the way. And I think they should have lost, or they could have lost to Duke last week if Duke hadn't committed those turnovers.
Could have lost to Clemson earlier this year. You
Yeah,
have
it's
to
field
do
goal game.
a NASCAR fire drill to get your field goal unit out on the field and nail a 55-yarder as time expires. So, like, yeah, but you reach a certain point in the season, Pat, where you are what your record says that you are. I want to talk a little bit about Dave Doeren and his future. If NC State decided to buy him out at the end of the year, and they could come to an agreement, but right now, at the end of the year, he'd be owed $12.5 million by the university. And we've talked, Pat, how the possibility that there could be a vacancy in the triangle, whether someone poaches Manny Diaz at Duke, if this is Dave Doeren's final year after 13 years at NC State with the mess that's been the Bill Belichick era in Chapel Hill. I also look at we're another weekend where first it was Penn State, and then Florida got into the action. LSU. Here's some other openings. Arkansas, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State, Stanford. I have Florida State written in my notes. Huge question mark next to that in terms of Norvell's future there.
Right.
So if you're NC State and you have to potentially compete against those other schools for coaches, that's something else to keep in mind when you talk about Dave Doeren's future, and really any coach's future, is, look, I think the top 3 jobs in some order are LSU, Penn State, Florida. I think from there you could say, okay, how you rank the rest of them is definitely up for debate. But you have 3 premier schools that are going to get their pick of who the best of the best is of next up as a college head coach. And so if you want to run that out of town, be careful because of all the other schools vying to improve their situations with their head coach.
I'm with you, and I think what Brent Key, like, where's he going to go? Right? Like, he's a Georgia Tech alum, played there, obviously coaches there. So is he going to want to leave? So that's the domino effect, right? So then where do these schools get their coaches from? And then those schools are looking for coaches. And if, like, the schools that the coaches that are leaving to go to these top programs are leaving schools that are on NC State's level, like a Georgia Tech. What pool are you drawing from? And I think the key here for Boo Corrigan, if he is to do a search, and this seems like a situation of where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, I do not have firsthand the report that we've heard from Joe Giglio, and that I was talking to somebody the other day on the beat that they seem to believe as well, that these conversations about Doeren being interested in retiring were real for a multitude of factors. Like, Doeren is a different cat. This is a guy, I remember I was at Pigskin Preview, which is kind of this like donor luncheon at the beginning of the year, and he got on stage and told a story I'd never heard before, that he wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
And one of the reasons he even sat in on his own surgery, he was having his own like knee surgery, I believe it was, and he told the doctor that he wanted to stay awake to see the surgery happen. Okay. So he was locked in.
There's no way they allowed that.
I can't remember if that detail ended up going through in the story. That seems crazy. But so that was the premise of it. The reason he didn't end up becoming a doctor, my understanding of how he explained the story, was that he didn't feel that the doctor was able to build enough relationships with his patients. And then he kind of gets a coaching opportunity, and the rest is history. But so this is a guy that like is in it truly for the right reasons. Like, he's in it for the relationships. He's in it to make a difference. This was a guy that wanted to save lives and be a doctor. So I think when you look at him, and I look at a guy that's like 53 years old, 55, somewhere in that ballpark, I'm like, he's too young to retire.
Well, that's what I don't get with the retirement conversation, to say, would he just step away for a few years? And I mean, he's coached for 13 years, so add up the salary over that time. But
well, there's the other piece.
So it's like retire, but what does retire mean, to where he's like done as a coach?
Maybe, because I think the other piece was his father, who ended up retiring but had dementia. Is my understanding of the detail. So I think he's potentially seeing that. And again, I don't have this firsthand. I'm just kind of relaying what some others have reported and just talking to some other people out there.
Conversations you've had with
and I'm just trying to figure it out, because I didn't buy it either. But then you're hearing from enough people that believe it starkly enough that you kind of have to accept it.
And he is the winningest coach in program history, but it's just like 4 out of 5, and it's just like, so how you try to salvage the here and now this season. Georgia Tech, Miami, Florida State, and North Carolina to close out NC State season. It's like, it's a
thin margin, though. Like, if you look at the season through another lens, like if they had beaten Duke and they'd beaten Virginia Tech, they'd be sitting here at 6-2, right? And they'd win 2 of these 4 games likely, and they'd finish right in the Dave Doeren sweet spot at 8-4. Now, they didn't win those games.
Yeah.
But
it goes back to my point. At what point are you what your record shows that you are?
Yeah, I think 4-4 is right.
If
we're just like, we've had these conversations so many times. Like, we're talking about a horror movie to Halloween. We're living in Groundhog's Day. Because
you lost 4 out of 5. Georgia Tech, number 8, 6.5 point road favorite. And then at Miami on November the 15th, like, I know you'll have the extra week to prepare.
Miami already had their bad
I know
loss.
the games are not played on paper, but just looking at that, where you've lost 4 out of 5, how is that getting any better in the next 2 weeks? I don't see it.
And at what point do you start to lose the players? Now, a point I've heard is like, we've been talking about the transfer portal ticking, right? Well, like, there's also the fact that these guys need to play for their own film. So does that keep a team? There's just the kind of like the force factors of like the transfer portal looming, pulling a team apart, but is it also held together at the same time by the prospect of guys just playing for themselves? There's also playing for pride. Like, we forget that. I think that's something I maybe overlooked with UNC, is like the pride of just this team that was one of the worst in all of college football, getting trashed in the media for 2 weeks, and the pride they've shown to go out and be competitive. Like, so can that happen for NC State? Because that is kind of Doeren's MO. Like, we talk about the relationships. He has those relationships with his players. So can they fight for him the rest of the way? If this is his last season, can they play for their coach to help him finish strong? But what does finish strong even look like? Is it going 2-2? Because, UNC's going to want to beat them at the end of the year.
Wolfpack still need 2 wins to become bowl eligible. So again, number 8 Georgia Tech this weekend at home. Got to bye. Then right now, number 10 Miami on the road, Coral Gables. Friday night game against Florida State, and then closing out the season against UNC. Let's go to Duke Clemson. Clemson homecoming weekend. I cannot believe this. I looked in my notes. Clemson only a 3.5-point favorite.
Yeah.
And the fact that Duke has a better record than Clemson. What world are we living in? Like the new world order, Pat.
The Clemson's 3-4?
It's crazy.
I mean, they're still kind of getting respect. And, you know, I mean, their quarterback was hurt last week, like Cade Klubnik. So they're coming off a bye. They lost to SMU. I mean, this team, they've lost every good team they've faced. They played Georgia Tech, Syracuse, SMU, and LSU. So basically every decent team they've played, they've lost to. Duke is a decent team. So are they going to lose again? I think maybe. And Manny Diaz has a lot of these great quotes all year.
I love these.
He had another one.
For the record, people are like, why are you talking about Duke less? The Manny Diaz quotes are my favorite part of the pod. Pat, lay it on us.
We need an open, right? So we did the greatest hits have been architect of our own demise. Today's quote was, we talk about failure as data. And I was like, that is awesome. Every time I forget to take the trash out or forget to do a job my wife tells me to do, I'm like, honey, failure is data. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to get better. And that was Manny Diaz's take on the mistakes they've made and how they lost to Georgia Tech, that failure is just data, baby. Setbacks inform us. When you become a really good football team, you think mistakes cost you the game. That was such a great spin zone. That like you have to be a great football team to beat yourself. Manny Diaz, ladies and gentlemen. Well done. I'm not saying I disagree.
I'm going to miss this so much when another team poaches him from Duke, whether this happens this coming off season or future off seasons. We need to start printing the T-shirts, Pat. I mean, like in all seriousness,
yeah.
I mean, like
failure is data.
You can understand the coach speak, if you will. You could understand that, but man, that's his quotes are literally my favorite. They're my favorite.
And I'm not like we're laughing about it, but like I kind of like it. Like that's a great way to spin it to your team. They're like, we need to learn from this. It's not just learning lessons; it's learning data. Like this is what we can do. Like he's big on these specific coachisms that I think are very analytically based. Like the middle 8 is one of his big ones. And that he's not alone in that, but that's winning the Final Four the first half and the Final Four the second half. Like these are ways that you win football games in the margins. And that's what Diaz is doing at Duke. He's winning in the margins. Like he is not the most talented team, but they are smartly acquiring players in the transfer portal. They didn't bring a ton of players in the offseason, but they nailed a lot of the ones they did. Cooper Barkate, Darian Mensah.
Yeah.
You know, they lose a star running back and Star Thomas, and then this guy Nate Shepard comes up out of nowhere. You know, like VJ Anthony, local kid, stays there, develops, becomes one of the best pass rushers in the country. Like these are the things that allow you to compete when you're playing with a shorter deck.
A really talented defensive backfield as well. So
yes.
When you talk about players that could play at the next level. Okay. That's Duke Clemson. Before we go, Pat, Monday we got some hoops too. Started the basketball season, man. Just the more the merrier. I cannot wait for the start of basketball season. We're not going to go, full on into that on this podcast, but the fact that that's already here this coming Monday, time is flying, and for at least the month of November, we'll have that crossover between hoops and basketball at the same time. So really, really exciting stuff too, considering, both Duke and UNC in the top 25, and then NC State right now as it stands in the AP top 25 is the highest rated team that is not in the top 25. So they had the most amount of votes of any team not ranked in the top 25, Pat.
You can feel it, and maybe it's just because I've worked here long enough now that I'm so deep in it, but I feel a buzz to the preseason triangle hoops with these exhibition games that I have not felt before. I think part of that is that they're televising some of these where before they were like private scrimmages.
Finally. Right? Finally. Because Duke at Tennessee, I flipped over and watched a bit of that on Sunday. Yeah. The NFL slate on Sunday afternoon. The
blowouts.
So it was like, let me see how Duke's going up against Tennessee. It's like, two teams that we can expect to be in the big dance once we get to March.
And UNC played BYU, lost a close one there, but some things to be excited about with the Tar Heels. I'm going to be at their Winston-Salem State game tonight at home. And NC State beats South Carolina on like a buzzer beater, essentially, Paul McNeil. Now, I didn't get to go out to that one, but, the Wolfpack were down in that one. They charge back on a big run, and they win. The reckoning is coming. The reckoning is here.
Yeah, man.
And for Duke, Cam Boozer has been all that you could have hoped for. So I think Caleb Wilson has been up to the hype as well with UNC. So I think we're in for a really fun season in the Triangle, which will hopefully get us out of this nightmare that we've been in Triangle football for the last 3 months.
Any other legendary Pat Welter road stories before we sign off here?
Well, it's Halloween. Are you a costume guy?
Oh, yeah.
What are you going to be?
I don't know. You know what? I don't know yet this year. I was Gus Fring from Breaking Bad a year ago. I had my Los Pollos Hermanos apron, if you will. I don't know yet. It'll come to me. I got 2 days to figure that out, Pat Welter. But I'll be something, man. I don't know yet. What about you?
Reminds me of like the Heisenberg quote. I am the one who knocks. Skylar, no. That is me. Such a great show. One of an all-timer. I don't have a costume. I'm always behind the 8 ball on it. I don't feel like spending the money on it. Back in college, I used to make costumes sometimes out of my closet. There was one year I was in the mall. This is my senior year of college. I mean, I had no money. And for whatever reason, I saw a Predator costume at like one of those old
movie.
One of those like comic book CD stores hanging on the walls, like $89. Here you go, sir. Take all my money. I threw on the Predator costume and just stayed in character all day, all night. So I showed up at a party and just jumped up on a table and just started doing this with the arm, like the arm thing. People were freaked the heck out. Nobody knew who it was. I was hiding in bushes and jumping. I kind of lost myself that night, Mike. So maybe that's why I don't wear a costume, because I get too deep in the character.
Friday night or Saturday, if you see someone in a Predator costume, culprit number one. He's the one and only Pat Welter. I'm Mark Bergin. This is another edition of WRAL Triangle of Two. On Apple and Spotify, do us a favor. Leave us a 5-star review, and on the WRAL YouTube page, if you haven't already,
hit
that like and subscribe button. Pat, as always, a pleasure.
Happy Halloween, folks.